Greedfall 2 is a game that I've never really been excited for, but occasionally a thought will pop into my head of, oh yeah, Greedfall 2's coming out, I wonder how that will turn out. And I have been sort of cautiously optimistic. I've been rooting for it. I was hoping the studio behind it, they were finally going to come out with a great game, because to give you some context, the team behind Greedfall 2, behind the first Greedfall, they're called Spiders, and they're known for making kind of low-budget, janky versions of older BioWare games. Back when BioWare were actually doing decent things, not like now with the Veilguard, but Spiders were trying to emulate that old BioWare, and they've released a ton of games over the last decade or so. There was Mars Warlogs, there was the Technomancer, obviously the first Greedfall as well, and Greedfall 2, The Dying World, I was really hoping this was going to be the start of them sort of having that breakthrough. They've been known for these 5 out of 10, 6 out of 10s, again, kind of janky, low-budget versions of maybe better games, and I thought this could be it for them. Could they finally make their mark and perhaps make their version of Larian's Divinity Original Sin, that game, that series, kind of putting Larian on more of the RPG map where people were showing interest, and then they got more successful, the sequel, obviously Baldur's Gate 3. Even From Software were kind of like that. They've made a ton of games, the Kingfield series, so many, but it wasn't really until Demon's Souls, Dark Souls that they kind of broke through and started to make tons and tons of really good games. So I was hoping the same for the Greedfall 2 developer, that this would be their big moment. Sadly, it's not looking like that. It's looking like Greedfall 2 is having a ton of development problems. They don't really know what they're doing, the direction, it's really shaky, and now the employees have gone to war with management, basically, and there's a big thing. But stepping back just a little bit before we sort of go over exactly what's happening, with Greedfall 2, one of the reasons I was optimistic is the first game. I thought the start of that game was so good. Like the first 4 or 5 hours or so, it felt like when BioWare were back at their best. It brought me back to kind of early Dragon Age, Knights of the Old Republic, where you have a nice little hub area where there's lots of NPCs with interesting things to say, great quests you can kind of explore, but it's not too big. It's an area that is full to the brim of content without it feeling sort of bloated and large for the sake of it, like we see in Ubisoft games and plenty of others in the modern day. I was really liking it, but then the game opened up and it did get really big, the map got really large, and it just felt like the developer didn't have the resources to fill that with good content. So I kind of got bored, I never finished the first one. I was hoping the developer would learn some lessons from Greedfall 2 and maybe just focus more on quality over quantity. And something interesting that happened is the first game had pretty sort of janky action combat, but apparently for the second, they were looking at more of a real-time with pause combat system that was maybe like a Dragon Age Origins. It interested me because we see like BioWare, modern BioWare, they've been moving away from more strategic RPG combat, chasing more of that action market, action combat. So I thought, hey, if this studio wants to be like BioWare, make similar games, they could just keep going more old school, making themselves like older BioWare, and they could sort of fill that gap. That could be interesting. It was the reason I was kind of hyped for the game, even though it looks like that dream is probably dead now. Hearing about the combat direction, I was kind of intrigued. That's why I was kind of following this game. What started to turn me off is we can see a release date of the 24th of September, but I'm almost certain that's an early access release date. I'm not sure why it doesn't mention early access here. That's kind of strange. I thought I'd seen that before, but I really believe it's early access. So the full game's not coming out, and seeing early access for a game like this single-player RPG, it's not really something that excites me. I'd rather wait for the full release. Now, some people will say, well, Baldur's Gate 3, highly successful, benefited so much from early access. But what I'd probably say is the way that Larian structures their games doesn't sort of ruin the mystery. You don't sort of spoil the whole game for yourself, given it's usually just the first act of the game, and Act 2 and 3 remain kind of a mystery. Also, that Larian have proved themselves with the early access model, like Divinity Original Sin, their first sort of modern game. That one was crowdfunded, people gave them a chance, and they delivered. They did early access, showed off the game, got feedback. Then they released the entire product. It was pretty good. They've done the same with Baldur's Gate 3, Original Sin 2 as well. With Spiders, I don't think they've done an early access before. So people should rightfully be wary, because they could release early access, the full game doesn't come out for years, and maybe it's missing a lot of the stuff that they've been promising or talking about. We just don't really know, and that sort of takes us into the development problems. If it's in development hell, if there's big issues, that should also scare people away from maybe giving the devs money now when the game just isn't finished. It seems like it's quite a while away. And this post here goes over the gist of what's happened. So Greedfall 2 production allegedly underwater just weeks before launch. An open letter from employees has criticised management at Spiders and has painted a concerning picture of Greedfall 2's development. Now, if this was happening like 10, 15 years ago, I'd probably give the employees the benefit of the doubt. And my first thought would be, what are the conditions like? Are you being asked to do way too much despite maybe the budget or lack of time that you've been given? What exactly is going on? But in 2024, I have to be skeptical, because I always wonder, are the employees' grievances genuine? Or is it things like, I'm making the game, but like I'm having a panic attack, so I really need you to renovate the office so there's a panic room so I can go in there and I can calm down and I can relax. Do this for me. If you're not going to do that for me, toxic management. I'm going to take to social media. We're going to go on strike. Hard to know. Is it genuine concerns, or is it like modern day social issues and they're whinging? We'll have to see. So this continues, and this is the open letter that the employees put out criticizing management. The early access release is painful, as attested by the several delays it suffered, and the complete release of the game less than a year later seems difficult to achieve, as there is so much left to do, the letter reads. While there has been no public shifting of dates or acknowledgement of an internal delay, the letter suggests that early access should have arrived much sooner than its current September 24 date. Another line in the letter says that the early access launch was postponed several times. Now this kind of lines up because I feel like Greedfall 1 came out years and years ago, and this isn't the biggest budget game. You would expect a follow-up sequel that's kind of similar, maybe some changes with the combat and so on, different combat style, but kind of a more of the same sequel in the same vein. You would think that's like 3 years, maybe 4 years at most for a small budget team. Not like the 6-7 year plus dev cycles that we see for modern AAA games, which is ridiculous. The industry won't survive. The games that we enjoy, they won't be there if dev cycles take this long. It's totally out of hand. But still, it's like a small budget game, kind of, and it's taking this long. There's development issues. The employees are talking about it now. Now, this is where I get a little bit skeptical of the employees' intentions. So the letter continues. The production is underwater, accumulating burnouts and other psychosocial risk factors. Now, psychosocial risk feels like kind of a buzzword these days. HR managers and everything really love it. Can really mean anything. Like, it could be serious. It could be that the managers have demanded everyone must work all through the weekend. We're not going to pay you anymore. You will do everything we want. Something like that, sure, that could be bad. But it could also just mean something like this, like Darren, my co-worker, sitting next to me, talking on the phone with his sister. He's being really loud when he talks. It sounds aggressive. It's like a microaggression. And because I feel threatened of him having a conversation on the phone, now I can't work. Now I need to lie down. Psychosocial risk. It's all getting out of hand. Can't do my job. And to finish up this letter, the workers fear they won't be able to be proud of their work when the game is released. Many people have left Spiders during the production, and others have no intention of staying after the game's release. Now, as a member of the public, a gamer, when I read this, sure, maybe we can be sympathetic with the employees if this is true, but something it definitely does is make me lose all confidence in the game. Like, if I'm sympathetic to the employees, fine, but it doesn't mean I'm going to buy the game. Absolutely, I'm closing my wallet. It sounds like this is a total disaster. I feel like the employees needed to be a bit more specific with what's actually going on there, because if they gave some genuine examples that sounded like management had been treating them super poorly, making it impossible for them to make a good game, then people might be more on their side. But it just sounds like internal issues that you've aired out into the public. even if management fixes them, I don't think the public is going to care about this game anymore. They're going to be skeptical. It sounds like development hell. You're not even giving confidence that in a year's time, it'll be done with early access and we'll get the full game. It's sounding like it's going to take way later, like they've delayed early access already. You can't even release like a broken, unfinished version of the game to sell. When are you going to release the full product that's meant to be good, that's worth our time and money? I'm not seeing that. And something else just to undermine the employees, to ensure that everyone loses sympathy, we can see here that Spider's workers to strike as Open Letter calls out management. Collective action at the Greedfall studio is planned for the week starting September 2nd. Now, why am I talking about losing sympathy? Well, because 44 workers out of Spider's 95 staff signed the Spider's Action Committee letter with the strike to take place in September in front of Spider's officers, but also online on a Minecraft server set up for the occasion. Nothing says you're serious like doing the protest on Minecraft in a digital video game world, sitting from the comfort of your computer screen. This just makes you look like fools, like any of the issues you're complaining about are probably just big nothings. Again, give actual examples. People may be on your side, they might care, and maybe we'll give you the benefit of the doubt when the game comes out. But from now, any hype I had, it's basically dead. The combat changes as well, so going to more of that sort of Dragon Age Origins, maybe real-time with pause combat style, sounding interesting, but it also sounds like they don't have a lot of direction, because fans of the first game, who maybe like the action combat, which this studio has been known for, they raised concerns, they weren't too enthusiastic, so the dev team said, oh, we'll try and do both, we'll do action combat, or you can pause, and when you try and do sort of a bit of both, you try and please everyone, I think you just please no one, and I would expect the combat just to be hopeless no matter what style you're playing. So, pretty mixed on that, but ignoring all of this, coming back to feedback on the game itself, I mean, if we look at the Steam forums, what people are saying, the reaction seems to be pretty mixed. So we've got here, I just watched Greedfall 2 The Dying World early access trailer. Bro, is it just me, or are all the faces on the characters ugly as fuck? And then everyone's saying, I agree, for sure, facial animation is definitely missing. Now, the question will be, is it incompetence? Do you need to improve these? Or have you done it on purpose? Like, are we back into agenda territory where everyone's going to be ugly because apparently that's a political belief now? Apparently making characters ugly in games is some sort of progressive value. That's what it seems like. A lot of people are shitting on the combat as well. Horrible turn-based combat. Regarding the combat, I'm trying to wrap my head around the seemingly wild decision to go in a completely different direction. Keep in mind that Greedfall 2 is a sequel to what appears to be Spider's most successful game. So that's the thing, people like me were maybe intrigued about the combat change. Maybe it means it's going to be more RPG. This can be a point of difference in a world with lots and lots of action RPGs. Now this dev maybe wants to bring in the old school RPG audience. That could be a good thing. Doesn't seem to be working out that well. It doesn't seem like they executed very well from what fans are sort of saying from maybe the footage that's been shown. I'm not sure if any of these people have played the game yet, but reactions are really mixed. And when you have this development hell going on, sounds like the employees are not confident in what they're creating. And obviously they're saying this is all management's fault. We want to make a great game, but we just can't with all of the issues. But the truth is, it doesn't matter why any of this is happening. If the game sucks, no one's going to buy it, no one's going to want to play it. And the strategy of the employees, it seems a little bit odd because they've made it very public now that there's development problems, the game's in a bad state. Who knows whenever it's going to officially release? They've said maybe a year's time, but perhaps far longer given all of the delays already. So we as the players, it's like, even if you fix these problems or whatever and now the employees are happy, I've lost all confidence that this game is going to be worth playing. It seems like it'll be a miracle if it even officially releases at all. And let's remember what they're asking, because they want everyone to invest in them, invest in early access. Pay now, give them your money now, with the promise that eventually they'll release a properly functioning game that is actually worth that money. And from what they're saying, the development hell, all the issues that are going on, I don't think so. I think this is a wait and see. I think they've sort of botched this early access with revealing all of these issues, and people should really be waiting until they actually release the full game and then deciding if that's going to be worth it. Again, even if the management issues are genuine, and I'm definitely skeptical of that given Minecraft protests, all the talk about psychosocial risk, even if it's totally genuine, I'm not spending any money supporting this developer until I know you're actually capable of releasing something in full, because they've totally lost my confidence. But we'll see. They'll supposedly release early access, then it'll probably be a long wait for the full release, and that's what I'm going to be waiting for. Thanks so much for listening. I'll see you on the next one. Cheers. Bye.